feel like I made it to the big stage now because it's only two of us versus, I don't know, 10 people or something.
Congrats, Jason.
Well, thank you all for coming. I'm going to talk for 30 seconds and then Ed will. I'm the founder of Folius Ventures. We were launched in September of 2021 with a dedication of backing APAC founders and specifically also doing a lot of 2C consumer type of applications, games in particular, as well as a lot of things that touches people in all facets of life. Edward, can you tell us about, for those who don't know you, tell us a bit more about yourself.
Thanks a lot, Jason, for that. I'll do a quick introduction about Hash and share a little bit about myself as well. Hash has been around since 2016, so a little bit earlier than some of the folks over here now, even earlier than myself, actually. We started off with a prop capital balance sheet, so most of the founders, they're all based in Korea, and now we're distributed across the different countries. So we got HQ in Korea, we've got a team in US, in SF and LA. We've got Singapore, where I was hired 3 years ago to start the Singapore team. And now we got folks. We have an office and a team of about 4 people. And we also have a team in India of 20 people. Started off with accumulating ETH on the secondary market around $10 actually, back in 17. Rotating that into ICOs and then rotating that into venture capital. To date, we've got about 200 portfolio companies under our belt. And personally, I used to be in traditional finance, similar to Jason, in private equity, in a very different asset class, real estate, and then found myself in crypto in 2020, and then essentially started looking into investments on the primary side. Thank you, Jason. Yeah, I think we'll get to it. And since today's topic is about Web3 gaming, maybe we can also share some insights about what we have seen across the different stages of investing, over different verticals of gaming. And maybe I can start off with a question like, I guess around 2020, 2021 was when gaming really started to become a thing.
Yep.
How do you see the next phase of Web3 gaming taking off?
Well, I think the Rails wasn't that matured, and this might not be the politically correct comment, but like you can't make a baby with 10 women in like 1 month. These things are labors of love. They take time to build, and I think what we're starting to see this cycle is the production quality actually do go up.
Yeah.
And why is that important? Because that's when people will be spending for non-investment reasons. They are fine losing their money because they get utility out of it. And that's actually a crux of how some of these Ponzi, as we call it, or some of these game loops, or some of these economic models would really work. Without the production value, it's just not they'll never make their LTV back. I think the rail got a lot better. I think you can finally build things that pay for users' gas fees. Even if the users pay gas fees, it's de minimis. You can now finally do IAP. You can do on-ramp, off-ramps. And teams kind of figure out like what should actually go on-chain versus off-chain. What kind of Ponzi's work, what kind of doesn't. So I think we're like a lot farther along of seeing something that can actually have mass market appeal. I don't know, would you agree?
I think the first point that Jason mentioned makes the most sense. He talked about quality of games. Quality of games have changed drastically across the past 3 to 4 years of seeing different cycles happen. Shout out to the folks at Gunzilla. They were there yesterday. They were just here before us. They're building a game of very high quality, AAA, and you definitely should check it out. But just full disclaimer, we didn't invest. I think, Jason, you didn't invest.
We didn't invest.
Right. But
just admire from afar.
Yeah. And we admire all these games. They're smart folks. Most of them actually come from Web2 gaming background. Some of our biggest successes also came from Web2 gaming background. Whether it's in Korea, there are very big studios like NetEase, Netmarble, Nexon, the founders of MapleStory. So these are the guys that essentially found out that, okay, there are some things in Web3 gaming that we can adhere to, whether it's user-generated content, whether it's NFTs, whether it's getting people and gamers involved in the production cycle, which you would never be able to do in Web2 gaming, which we like a lot.
And you do talk to all of the largest studios in Korea. Like, I mean, they are observing Axie and Steppen and all these games from afar and see their waves. Like, for those large studios that kind of thought about Web3 early and iterated the business model and kind of the games over time, what do you think they sort of changed as they observe this industry? Yeah.
I think the simplest example here would be the use of NFTs in gaming. And this is not too specific, I think, to Korean studios, but it's something that they know that they can tailor to the audiences the most. Because Korea is a very retail-driven market, whether it's speculation, whether it's gaming, gamers, some of the best esports teams come from Korea. And so they know that that's a market that they can target and tackle very easily. So the CEO of Nexon, the studios behind MapleStory, actually launched his own Web3 gaming studio called D-Labs. The first person that he thought about trying to essentially get some investment from naturally came to us. They came to Hash and say, hey, we have good experience in the Web2 gaming field. These were the games that we built in the past. You have experience crafting elements in crypto gaming. How about we work together? So it's a simple thing. Like if a Web2 game studio wanted to involve users or raise money, they would have to go through the long process. But here, they can launch an NFT collection.
Yep.
And that NFT collection owned by users and gamers can then be used within the new games that they build. So they fuel and they build a community over time.
And do you feel like their distribution models, because I think a lot of projects in Web3 kind of just shield themselves on CT, but completely ignore TikTok, IG, and all of the conduits where consumer products would go to market. Do you feel like of the Nixons of the world or the top studios that are really successful previously doing now a Web3 enabled title, is their model of distribution similar to this Web3 native way, or what's the difference?
Yeah, excellent question. This is our take in that if you're trying to target a local market, you need a local distributor, you need a local publisher. If let's say I am trying to build an FPS game and I'm trying to bring that to India, because that's a place which works very well. If you see PUBG, that's worked very, very well in India. PUBG probably has the largest amount of DAUs coming from India. And then you might think, okay, I'm building a Web3 game and I want to target a market which FPS works really well. I go to India, if I don't have a publisher or distributor in India, that's not going to work. And so I think bringing it back to like Korean gaming studios, they notice this and they know this. And so if they want to engage someone, they either take this in-house or they outsource it to someone that has a lot more familiarity in the markets that they operate. Maybe I can check your thoughts on how distribution works in some of the portfolio companies that you have worked with.
Yeah, because I think there's a real debate to be had, because somehow I think once you involve financial games within the product itself, it's almost necessary that the studio itself controls a part of that distribution. Because I kind of don't think that the Web2 native publishers really understand how the financial games are played. And if the studios themselves don't control the distribution to some extent, they end up losing the largest leverage they get from crypto, which is kind of cashless user acquisition. Because you can just give away NFTs, you give away tokens, and you can almost guarantee an extremely strong day 1, day 7 retention. But if they give it to a distributor, the distributor is going to tell them to spend cash. And I think we've found teams that sort of made that mistake. It's like, okay, we're a studio, we don't touch the distribution, let's like off-put it to somebody else. And it's just hard to compete with Web2 companies, especially when their R&D budget is not the same. I don't know if you feel the same way.
I agree. Maybe switching gears a little bit, is there any form of distribution on the device level that you prefer? If a game is building, let's say, PC only or mobile only, or would you recommend them to do a mix of both?
So if they have the cash, I would say PC and mobile. Most of them don't have the budget.
How much cash is needed for something like that?
I think if you want to do both, you probably need to raise. The product needs to be 80% ready. And then on top of it, I think I would advise having like $5 to $10 million in the budget.
Okay, 5 to 10. Okay.
Like making sure that works is not easy. But and look, if the mobile device creators are not as against Web3 as they are, I would say kind of always mobile first. You get the largest DAU base with the sort of most retail user base that is most lenient in terms of spending, and I think you kind of get the largest distribution base across the world.
Any mobile Web3 games off the back of your head that you know gone through this way?
Well, thank you for the layup. I was going to say that we led the deal in Matrix Fire. It is a mobile FPS shooter that is a very similar thing to what I would call Valorant Mobile cross CS:GO Mobile. And it is a mobile-first title that will come on iOS and Android. And we have pretty high hopes for it, achieving critical scale. We can talk about it in a second, but compare that to maybe like PC titles we've seen or console titles, we just felt like it's extremely hard to juggle production value and sort of this Web3 strategy all at the same time. I mean, not all teams have similar level of resources, so you kind of have to prioritize one over the other.
And if you don't mind me asking, how big is Matrix Fire's team? Just for some of the builders out there who might be building Web3 games, thinking about whether you should do PC or mobile, give them an idea.
Yeah. So when we talk to them, they have already been working on the game for 2 years, two and a half years. At the peak of the development cycle, they have anywhere between 40 to 60 full-time and part-time staff members, and they have already spent $10 million on this game when we sort of started talking to them. And by the way, this is a team from Tencent with a historical sort of experience in building things like Crossfire in China, or like, they help port COD into mobile. So even for an experienced team like that, it takes a while to bake that game into fruition.
Yeah, makes sense. I think for any of the builders out there, especially if you're building gaming, full-on games, you probably are looking at 40 to 60 people before you get some significant level of funding from some of the bigger gaming investors out there. I can share some perspective as well. One of our top mobile games, at least for now, is Cypher. You've probably heard of that.
I have.
Did you guys
do they have a token?
So they do have a token. They do have a token. It's not listed on anywhere yet, but they are gearing up for some listings on centralized exchanges. They're only on Uniswap right now. But that aside, right, I think putting into perspective what Jason shared as well, Cypher's team is about 200 people large. They're based in Vietnam, so the cost of capital is a lot lower. They do have 2 floors in a building in Vietnam for their office, and they split the teams according to game development, into product, into art, and into smart contracts. That means like you need some folks, if you're building a Web3 game, you need some folks that are very familiar with crypto token models as well. So that's something that they have worked with over the past 2 years since our investment.
Yeah, and of the teams that you work with, like even recently, is there anything that you notice about them that you thought, oh my God, this is really cool, or like this is so novel?
You mean team background, or
what they're doing? Like I can share a bit of my thought.
Okay. Yeah.
I think there are a couple ways to do this. One is that I've seen teams that lean very aggressively into the sort of money nature of Web3. I don't know, I'm probably too old for this, but back in 2002, there were like games that is like Legend of Mir, where it's an MMORPG and people go online and kill each other. And you have like these large servers, people drop thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. And what is the Web3 version of it? Well, one version is like, well, if we just give people NFTs and whatnot, it'll be great. But the other version is like, what if we really go hard into making sure that money is a part of this journey? So if you die, you actually lose the equipment that's worth thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars. You have to really pay to control the ownership of this main city, and you get the tax dollars within that city. And there's like a real economic incentive to spend dollars to get ROI. There's a real economic incentive to like not die or kill somebody else within the game. And if you find the right audience that is willing to spend money, maybe it will have significantly higher ARPU versus like a traditional Legend of Mir model. So we backed a game called Metascene that's kind of doing exactly that on mobile. So I thought that was like kind of interesting because they kind of lead into the speculative and monetary aspect.
Okay.
We hope it'll work.
No, makes sense. I think if we were looking at games and we're trying to do DD on them, especially on the founder and team background, for us especially, we really want to make sure that these are gamers in nature. You couldn't possibly be working in a hedge fund in the past and trying to build a game, FPS or a TCG game. I mean, there are. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes. Without naming names, but yes, keep going.
Yeah, like there will be a lot of folks that know that this is an easy piece of the pie to eat onto, and then build like a game on mobile very, very simply with very little capital, and then start to raise at multi-hundred million valuations, and then launch a token, and then before you know it, the product is nothing to do. Like the token that's out there has nothing to do with the game itself. So when we look at games, we try to make sure that the team behind this are very, very familiar with playing games. So if you're building TCG, you gotta know the latest and hottest TCG out there. TCG stands for trading card games, right? And on mobile, I guess in the past it's Hearthstone, and then eventually nowadays there's a lot of people playing like Marvel Snap. You got to understand the game loop, how long each game takes. If you're playing mobile, who are the target market that you're trying to eat into? People on mobile are always playing games on the go, which means they don't want to sit down and play like a single session for, let's say, longer than anything 20 minutes, unless you're playing, let's say, MLBB. Then MLBB may be like a 10, 15-minute game, but beyond that, I think there's not many games that can capture users' attention for a long period of time.
And it seems like you prefer mobile also.
Yeah, a big fan of mobile games. I think especially if you're trying to build in crypto, you don't get people to sit down on a desk and play games. People have a very low attention span.
Yeah.
I guess if you even put it into the context of like shit coins or meme coins, they hold things for a very short amount of time. So people move and they go on to the next narrative very quickly. So if there are any builders out there, I think you should always prioritize mobile as much as possible.
And if it's about mobile, this is kind of the next question. It's very timely. When somebody's building, let's say on mobile or PC, and they're like really, really good builders, experienced, what are they complaining about, like currently in the state of Web3, or like what do you think the biggest constraint is for some of these builders?
I think a lot of these builders don't have the necessary or sufficient amount and adequate amount of like understanding in crypto, token model wise, tokenomics, before they start to build something in crypto. Like if you ask them, why are you doing this in crypto? Versus you are able to build exactly the same thing in Web2. And then when you get them the question, they say, oh, maybe I can use some form of NFTs to bootstrap my community. Or maybe I can use a token model to incentivize demand. But when you ask them the deeper questions into how do you actually incentivize demand with your token, and how do you loop it into your ecosystem, I haven't managed to get a very good answer. And so I think that's one of the bigger sort of concerns and constraints that we see today in crypto gaming. Jason, how about you?
I think distribution. I think they just have a hard time getting on some of these like iOS and Android. Android's easier. iOS, absolute PETA. And so they got to find alternative means. And what we have observed, it's really cool. It's like Telegram is really trying to build this app ecosystem. And we've started to see teams that with really good previous Web2 backgrounds who have seen the journey of like Naver and WeChat and Facebook. And dude, like their games are much lower production quality, but you can spin them up in 4 days with like a previous template that is proven to work, blows up, massive ARPU, and they're distributing on Telegram.
Yeah, makes sense. So for me, it's token models, tokenomics, and incentive design. For Jason, it's going to be distribution.
Yeah.
So I think in any case, if you're going to pitch to a VC about your game or your game studio or your idea, that's probably things you want to check off your list. Like you want to think about how you're going to market, which markets you're going into, and how you're going to think about distributing it. Is it through a certain device? Is it through a console? If it's a device, is it PC or mobile, right? I think we are out of time. So maybe I can just end it off with like, Jason, if people want to find you or know more about you, how should they go about doing that?
Thank you. You can find me on Twitter at MapleLeafCap, or you can find us at folius.ventures.
For myself, I'm at CPTN3MOX, so it's Captain Nemo.
Very hard.
That's for myself. Its hash is www.hash.com. HASHED. Yeah, and anyone can approach us after this just to have a chat. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a blast.